If last week's film was an example of how Hong Kong movies can be fun, this one is quite the opposite. In fact, it's a perfect example of how Hong Kong cinema can be grim, vile, and disgusting. This is a human pork chop. So Human Pork Chop is based on an actual true crime event that happened in Hong Kong. I think during the 80s. This isn't a true crime channel. For that, I'd recommend, YouTubers that are actually involved in the true crime scene. The only thing I know is that the crime is titled the Hello Kitty Murders because the victim was found in a giant Hello Kitty plushie. And this movie is based on that.
我當差咁耐，咁殘忍嘅 case 都係第一次跟。
Now, this film and a lot of the films based on the Junko Furuta case get a lot of hate for being tasteless exploitation films based on true crime events, which always fascinates me because I always forget that only the Americans can produce such exploitative trash based on true crime events. Only Netflix can do that. If somebody else tries, that's a big no-no.
Game over.
This one is quite an obscure Category 3 film, however it does share similarities with the more popular ones. Basically how the film is told in flashback sequences during a police investigation is lifted off of something like Untold Story, except the similarities basically end to that. Other than the cannibalism, but that's for later. Because if Untold Story is an example of a, excuse my word, but fun Category 3 film based on a true crime event, this one is the complete opposite. This one is very grim and has no comic relief. I mean, Untold Story was pretty grim in a few sequences, but the goofy cops kind of made up for that. This one doesn't have that. In fact, the only comedy, the only chuckles I had during watching this film was the subtitles mistake, because yep, this is a bootleg. There's no official release of this, and I hope somebody puts out a Blu-ray, because that ending sequence, I want to see that in 4K, please. So to quickly go through the film, because the story is quite simple, we follow our main character, Grace, as she tries to survive, because she was recently dumped by her boyfriend, and in fact that's not really a big deal because her boyfriend is kind of a piece of shit, but so are most of the characters in this entire film. Anyways, she's down on her luck, she doesn't have a place to stay, so she goes with a friend to a motel. The motel owner is less of a motel owner and more of a brothel owner, because you see Grace and her friend starts to sell their bodies to pay back for the hotel. And they both share this addiction to narcotics, and we'll see that throughout the entire film, how she cannot let go of those drugs, and that might be the reason why she's in so much trouble. One day, as the boss of the motel leaves, she decides to steal money from him. She steals $10,000, which... who has 10 grand just sitting in their pockets? Like, I know they're gangsters, well, petty crooks, but Jesus Christ, man, I don't know, open a bank account or something? Somebody's gonna steal that, especially when you're running a brothel. So yeah, she steals money from him and then she disappears. However, Hong Kong is a small city, I guess, and they find her quite easily. And when they find her, well, they beat her. They beat her a lot until she pays them back. However, the interest rate, because yes, there's interest, and it's terrible interest, even worse than most interest right now, she owes them about 20 grand. Which is not a good thing. During that time, she tries to find some money while selling her body, but she can't catch a break. The customers don't want her, and she gets fired out of brothels like there's no tomorrow. Almost just as bad as me getting fired from pretty much every job I ever had. Except A&W, but working in a fast food doesn't really... Yeah, I'm a terrible employee. Eventually, the boss gets tired and gives her an ultimatum. She has to pay him back in 2 days. How will she make 20 grand in 2 days? Well, she won't. Spoiler alert, she can't pay them back. So instead of, I don't know, forcing her into more prostitution, they do the super nice thing of kidnapping her from her own mother and keeping her locked in a room until, you know, I don't know what their goal was. It's certainly not to make money, because they even tried to prostitute her, but nobody wants her because she's been sitting in her room and she's been tortured for weeks, so she smells like shit and no customer wants to do anything with her. And we see pretty much every detail of said torture, either physically, like burning a plastic straw over her legs so she gets like burn marks, or of course mentally abusing her, insulting her, keeping her away from drugs. There's a scene that stayed with me, and it'll probably stay in my head rent-free, where they're at a karaoke bar and they're smoking opium, or heroin, I guess is the modern term. I don't know why I said opium like I'm in a Tintin cartoon, but yeah, they're smoking heroin and she really wants it. So the boss makes her down 6 beers in 3 minutes, which she does just to get her fix. I don't know if I've made myself clear enough, but this is a depressing ass movie. So after she gets her drug, she wants to escape, and they find her trying to escape, so they relentlessly beat her again. And have I mentioned that during this entire scene, during this entire film in fact, she is pregnant? And it shows. So they're beating a pregnant woman, but the pregnant woman at the same time is drinking and smoking opiates. Mother of the year. This is so fucking grim. Eventually, because there is no God, she will die from an overdose, because to punish her, because while they were away she stole some drugs, they laced the drug with something and then she smokes it when they left again, and she dies accidentally of an overdose. So Joe and Keith and the boss man, well, they decide to chop her to bits and cook her. They're the titular human pork chop. Don't know what Hong Kong liked so much about cannibalism, but it's frequent in Category 3 films, for some fucking reason. So they eat her, they boil her, they make her into pork chops, I guess, which they're not really pork chops, but who's looking? You know, pork chops would imply pork, and it's not pork, it's human meat, but like I said, who's looking? And then the police finally bust them, and then that's how the film starts actually, because this film is entirely said through police interrogation between the boss man, his wife, and the police officers. So the ending is actually the beginning, where they find her in a Hello Kitty doll, dismembered and half eaten. So, what did I think of human pork chop? This movie is disgusting. This is actually one of the few times, which actually I've said that word multiple times now, because I'm starting to watch some really messed up stuff, that I would describe this as disturbing. The fact that this is based on true events, which at the end there's this title sequence that said that any similarity between this and real events are completely accidental, which clearly they're not. Anyways, that made me giggle. So the fact that this is based on a true crime, and from what I remember from said true crime event, it's actually pretty accurate, makes it even worse. There's a scene that I haven't described in the synopsis part of my review, where she's force-fed shit. And that was probably the most disgusting sequence, closely followed to the karaoke sequence. This movie is just a long, drawn-out torture of a woman, of Grace, our main character, and there is nothing to look forward to. There is no hope. This is as bleak as it comes. And I feel like this is what type of extreme cinema I tend to lean more towards to. Like, yeah, it's depressing, and I'll probably not rewatch this in a while because there's no fun things, but for what it is, it actually really works, and it'll stay with me for a while because it's effective in displaying realistic brutality, which was something that the film Brutal couldn't do. This should have been named Brutal, not Human Pork Chop. This title is so exploitative. I mean, the movie is too, but Jesus Christ, man, put some effort, some creativity. What the fuck is a human pork chop? And what's funny too is there is graphic gore at the end, but during the entire film there is no graphic gore. There's no real sleazy, titillating sexuality. This is very far from what I thought this would be, knowing Category 3 films, knowing basically they're Hong Kong very exploitative films. This is almost not exploitative at all. It's more of a drama that has a really messed up ending and middle part, and everything is fucked up about this film. It's really fucking fucked up. So, would I recommend Human Pork Chop? Yeah, if you are into disturbing or extreme cinema, this should be right up your alley. This is vile, this is disgusting, you'll need a shower after this. I just need one because I worked all day and it's fucking hot, but you'll need a shower because it's so goddamn messed up. So, thank you guys for watching, and see you guys next week.